Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. Are you looking forward to it? Meaning, are you looking forward with eager anticipation
ready to count together
to experiencing the thrill
10,
of the crowds,
9, 8,
the fun of it all,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! We did it!
that will soon happen in a matter of days. But some are not quite looking forward to that as much. They're glad they made it through Christmas, but they're entering the new year with a bit of reservations, but still, they're willing to risk that things can get better. This song may capture that sense.
It's just another New Year's Eve, another night like all the rest. It's just another New Year's Eve, let's make it the best. It's just another New Year's Eve, it's just another old lang syne. But when we're through this new year, you'll see we'll be just fine.
There are some that are not looking forward to New Year's. There are some that wish they could just pull the covers over their heads and not have to deal with it. There are some that are wondering, what's it all for? Why am I doing this anymore? Well, for those of you that are having a difficult time anticipating New Year's, we're going to look at why. We're going to look at what are some of the issues that may cause you to not be looking with eager anticipation on this edition of Journey to Healing.
Welcome to Journey to Healing. Do you find yourself discouraged, troubled, in need of healing, but not sure where to turn? Jon Uhler, a licensed professional counselor, is here to help. Jon has more than 30 years of professional experience, helping people deal with the issues that keep them emotionally and spiritually stuck. There is help. There really is hope. There is a God who loves you, who wants to help you find peace and strength. And Jon Uhler is here to help you find that on this edition of Journey to Healing.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Jon Uhler, and this is Journey to Healing. We're here every Friday night from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TECN.TV, the leader in Internet TV. We looked at last week how to cope with loss as you enter the Christmas season. Well, for those of you that, and quite a few people reached out and said that that really resonated for them. Well, here comes New Year's. And if Christmas was difficult, more than likely New Year's is going to be difficult as well. So how is one to cope with this back-to-back series of celebrations where everyone else seems to be thoroughly enjoying themselves, but you are simply trying to, at best, grin and bear it, trying to make it through? Well, we need to understand, and some people readily can identify the things that are preventing them from being able to ring in the new year with eager anticipation. But some are not necessarily able to. They just know they're not all that in the mood, in the spirit. Kind of feel a little bit like Barry Manilow, but his song. But then again, it rings hollow. What is it for those folks, as well as those that have experienced significant loss that they're still dealing with? How can they go into the new year with a sense of hope, with a sense of optimism, with a sense that this year can be different? Well, at first, they need to fully identify and appreciate what it is they're feeling. Some people know, right? For someone that is depressed, it is not a surprise because they really can't even get out of bed at times. For others, though, they just feel like overcast skies, almost like Seattle in the wintertime as far as the sky. It's just gray, it's just kind of muggy. Clinically, we used to call that dysthymia. That's a low grade depression. So, what do you do? Well, you first have to identify that there are things that are more than likely unfinished that need to be addressed so that you can begin to move forward, truly allowing things to remain in the past. What happens if you are dealing with still significant loss? You still have to go through those steps. Allow yourself time. We mentioned last time as we were looking at in anticipation of Christmas, how does someone deal with their emotions? Well, it's understanding that there are stages. And those stages, again, I'll mention those. These come from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She did the best and groundbreaking work on identifying stages. When you hear the news of a loss, either your own physical impending series of illnesses or illness, this will apply. She studied hospice patients, or when you hear news that you were not anticipating. The stages are first, it will be shock and then denial. Just behind that, and that can, there's a long period of time that actually the shock and denial can stay with you. But just behind that is the issue of anger. Why? Because the flip side of hurt is anger, like heads and tails of the same coin. So to lose something that never should have been lost, to have something taken from you that never should have been taken, that is painful. There's going to be anger. There's going to be anger at a lot of different people, a lot of different places, so to speak, especially God. So there can be anger towards self, anger towards others. You need to end anger towards God. You need to be able to allow yourself to experience that anger. If there's still any sort of last ditch effort or possibility that it won't happen, that the worst case scenario won't happen, that you can dodge that potential loss, a part of us will do bargaining, whether we're aware of it or not. That's where somebody will make a bargain with God, that if God preserves somebody that they care about, if they preserve themselves, the person will dedicate themselves to God. They'll teach junior high Sunday school. They'll become a missionary. They oftentimes will promise fairly extreme things. There's another phrase that is used. There are no atheists in foxholes. So God, if you get me out of this, and then I make a promise. When the loss still happens, when the worst case scenario happens, when the tsunami comes through your life, then anger will be pushed down and that becomes depression. So depression is a normal and actually necessary part of being able to work through the grief and loss. It will then, depending upon if I can still work through that, I will eventually come out of that. I believe wrestling with God, and then there are stages. But if I can't, then eventually I will go into hopelessness, into despair. How do you know if you're doing that? Well, you start to give up. You start to give up with life or on life. And as a matter of fact, if you know of anybody that has gone into a severe depression, here are a few things to look for to identify any potential suicidality, because, of course, that is the final exit that some people will choose to take. What you want to look for is either a sudden change of mood, where more than what would seems a little more quick or a little more rapid, where almost the next day they are cheerful, they're chipper, they seem all settled. During that time, you might find that somebody will begin to give items away. Why? Because they are now finally taking control of the situation and they know they are not going to need these items any longer. So those are two real red flag indicators. If you have someone that's starting to give items away, starting to intimate that, hey, if something were to happen, I'd like you to have that. So those are indications that you need to begin to ask somebody, and you can ask them pretty specifically, like, tell me about what's happening. Do you have thoughts? Have you been thinking about maybe not being around any longer? So to be able to get them talking is actually a very healthy thing. It may be a clinical depression, and at times, then medication is important because they've taxed the body to such an extent that the neurotransmitters have decreased to a point where they're not able to pull themselves out of that depression. Certainly, it's a spiritual issue as well, but our brain is an organ and it is a physical issue as well. So it can be a medical issue. So please, we need to be mindful of those that are really going through severe depression. When you have gone through enough, when you've been hit time after time after time, it is hard to get back up. It's hard to be willing to risk again. When you've gone through enough loss, when you've gone through enough of a broken heart, when you have experienced too many broken promises, too many starts and stops towards your dreams, too many dreams that have been dashed, too many times where success was snatched from your grasp, too many unanswered questions, too tired to try anymore, too discouraged to hope, too wounded to care, when it's too painful to risk getting your hopes up again, when there's been too much loss to ever risk believing that things could get better, when there's seemingly too little hope and too many big obstacles standing in the way, when there have been too many unanswered questions. How can you risk? How can you risk believing that things can get better? You certainly will not find it easy to celebrate that a new year is beginning, that the old year is coming to a close. Why? Because a part of you simply anticipates what? It's either going to be the same old, or it's going to get worse. You don't see any hope. It's important to understand that losses, and they come in many different shapes and sizes, it's not just physical loss as far as death and dying. That represents, in my estimation, about 20% of all the different kinds of losses we can experience. We can experience the loss of ability, the loss of hopes, the loss of dreams. We can experience the loss of relationships. I think a lot of families over the past couple of years, especially with COVID and what happened worldwide, there were many divisions that happened within families. The issue of whether or not to be vaccinated, that was a very major thing in many families, in many friendships. And so it's very understandable that those kind of losses, especially where things will never be the same potentially, those don't get processed easily. And we need to understand then the steps, and we need to understand we need to understand that significant losses create profound issues for us. I want to go through a portion of it's really an intensive workshop that I've put together, and we're going to look at in what ways do significant losses create some of these profound issues. So let's go through these together. The meme over on the right says it's hard to answer the question, what's wrong, when nothing's right. First bullet point, why should I care or trust anymore if all I'm going to do is hurt? That's a very reasonable question. Oftentimes, especially if we are involved in church, we may find it difficult to risk being honest. If you're involved in a church body, if you're part of a church that doesn't really make allowance for emotions, if they have given you the message that to have any other emotions other than positive emotions that you are less than spiritual, first of all, then they don't understand Scripture, because Jesus wept. John the Baptist had very intense emotions. He wondered where God was. That's why he sent word to Jesus through his friends when John was locked up, likely, which certainly ended up happening, but John had a sense that his head could be chopped off. Well, he knew that Jesus needed to increase and that he needed to decrease, but he didn't anticipate that. He also knew that the Messiah came to set the captives free, but where was John? He was in prison. So nothing was making sense. As a matter of fact, every one of the examples we see in Scripture of those that God has used significantly has gone through a very difficult time of testing that develops patient endurance, by the way. But it's in the midst of those trials that we'll end up grappling with a lot of different issues, especially does God see? Does he know? Does he care? Think about the disciples when Jesus was in the back of the boat. The boat is at risk for being swamped, and these are professional fishermen, and Jesus is sleeping. And what do they say? What do they ask? With a lot of energy, Lord, don't you care that we're drowning? That's the cry of the human heart when I'm going through the deepest of valleys. We'll continue. Next bullet point. Why should I ever allow anyone to get close enough to hurt me again? Again, these are going to be some of the profound issues that will be raised. Why ever be real again? Why not just smile and make them think you're happy while simply just staying dead on the inside? That is very, very common. That somebody who's gone through significant loss simply shuts down. Now they're going through the motions, and they almost become a human doing rather than a human being. Why should I go on feeling this pain? That is a very normal and, in a way, a healthy question. Why should I continue? If I don't see any end to this, if I don't see any hope, why am I going to continue going on and carrying this harm, this hurt? And where was God, and why didn't he intervene? That is really at the heart of all the internal questions. Isn't God big enough to intervene? Of course he is. Could he have stopped it? We have to acknowledge, yes, he could have. Of course he could have. But he didn't. So what is that going to do within someone? It's going to create massive amounts of questions. That's what Job wrestled with. It is okay and necessary to wrestle with those questions. It is not disrespectful to God. It is not blasphemous. It is normal. And at the end of the book of Job, God said about Job, when all of those massive trials, he lost all of his kids, meaning all his kids died, all his very close personal friends, which were his servants, many of them got murdered. He experienced the most that Satan could throw at him. And God's commentary about Job was, through all this, Job did not sin. It is not sin to ask hard questions because God knows, literally, God knows they are within us. And it doesn't mean that we don't care about God, and it doesn't mean that we don't honor him. It doesn't mean that we don't submit to him. It means that we are human and we need to know why. And he is okay with that, meaning we're really asking, embedded in the why question is, Lord, do you know? Do you see? Do you care? Do you feel what I'm going through? Once I understand that he does, then I will be able to reorient things on the inside to understand that as long as he is with me, then he is not detached. In the latter portion of the book of Isaiah, in Isaiah 59, it said that in all their sufferings, he himself also suffered. That is God's commitment to us. that he is not detached, and he will walk through the deepest of valleys with us. Why? Because in Isaiah 53, that he himself was a man of deepest sorrows and of the deepest kind of grief. He understands what we have gone through. Does he see? Does he know? Does he care? Is he concerned about evil and injustice? That is a huge issue. If you or someone you know has gone through injustice at the hands of a perpetrator, that is a primary question that is under the surface. Is he concerned about my pain? And does he see me slowly dying? You can be dying on the inside, yet be so defended that you are almost detached from yourself. Yet little by little, you're losing hope. What do you do when you either recognize that you're beginning to descend into that very dark valley, but really a valley of depression? What do you do in order to risk believing that you will be able to come out of this? If you can risk believing that God as our shepherd, he is with us, he will not leave us, and he will be our ever-present help in our time of need, and we can pour our heart out to him. He is the shepherd of our heart.
Within your arms, I can know your
purposely kept the credits on the end of those. People have done a nice job in putting together lyrics to different scenes, and that one really captures it. Some of you may be familiar with that artist and wonder why I played Sandy Patty. Well, first of all, it's a beautiful song. Secondly, some may know that she had an affair, and so you may be wondering, why would I play a Christian artist who destroyed her ministry? Well, you will find out. Because isn't that also part of grief and loss? Where if we have made decisions that have brought harm to us or others, if we've done something stupid or foolish, are we finished? Meaning, has God washed his hands of us? Or is there the ability to be restored? And fortunately, there is. Now, it may look different, and that's part of the grief and loss process, coming to terms with what things may look like. When I can't see what things are going to look like, can I risk believing that God can take this situation, he can take this scenario that I can't see my way out of, I see no way out, or one where significant loss has happened and I see no good thing that can come from this? I don't see how any pieces can be put back together. I don't see a way out. I don't see a way forward. And especially if I've lost someone, that I don't see myself ever getting over this. What can we do when we're experiencing that kind of profound pain that would paralyze us, that would keep us stuck? How can I risk getting out of bed? How can I risking to believe that it's not what it looks like? That despite everything within me that's saying that it will never change, that come New Year's and New Year's Eve, when I see the ball drop and I see the new year being rung in, that I don't have to feel like it's going to just continue as far as the pain into the next year, that maybe, just maybe, that this could be the beginning of new things, that my heart can mend, my future can begin to come together even though I can't see it. What are the reasons to keep going, to keep hoping, to keep trusting, and to be willing to risk again and to risk believing that it's not what it feels like? The reason is that God is there. He is still there. He is still on the throne. And he will uphold us. He will uphold you. He will uphold me. And he will carry you when you can't find it within yourself to hope any longer, to risk again, or to get up one more time. The greatest act of faith is being willing to take one more step again, to risk believing despite what it feels like and despite what it looks like, that he can make a way, that he is a way maker, that he can still come through, and that he knows and he sees and he cares. And that if I give him my brokenness, if I give him my inability to see beyond today, that if I'm willing to take another step, a step of faith, that he really can make all things that I've experienced, he can make something out of them and provide direction where I can't see that there's I can't even see the next step. God will honor our willingness to risk trying again. He will be with us. He is an ever-present help in our time of need. He will heal our wounds. He will mend our hearts. And he will allow us to begin moving again. Some of you, some of us have been through very difficult times. There was a group of people that went through an extremely difficult time. They made a movie from a rugby team that crash landed in the Andes, or the Himalayas, crash landed in the mountains, I think the Andes, and many of them did not come out alive, but many did. And it was really the result of, after the search parties were called off, it was the result of two men that were willing to make the trek out of the Andes I want to show a clip from a key moment, and this is a true story, where these two have been trekking for miles in the frostbitten weather, where they've got frostbite, and they are crouched down on a ledge one night. There's a snowstorm, and they're huddling down. And in the morning, one of them is still asleep. The other has gotten up. They couldn't see, and they assumed they were very close to finally coming out of the mountains down into the valley to get help for themselves and their friends, to finally bring help and be rescued. Well, the one who was a bit stronger as far as emotionally and mentally, and just means that he was able to help. He knew how crucial this was. So he got up. The storm has passed as far as they're on the ledge, and he climbed up on top of the ridge. And he knew what he saw and how bleak. But he knew that his companion, he knew that his friend needed hope. And this was going to be difficult because of the reality of what faced them. But because of the attitude of the first friend, he was able to make it through. But I want you to see what they were facing.
Nanda? Nothing but mountains. We've had it. We've completely had it. We have it. In two of these mountains somewhere, there's a green valley. These mountains over here, there's no snow on them. These mountains must be 50 miles away. You can walk 50 miles? If we have to, we will. You know what it is that we've lived this long the way we have? 70 days that we climbed this mountain. You know what it is? It's impossible. It's impossible, and we did it. I'm proud to be a man on a day like this. Alive. That I lived to see it. And see it in such a place. Take it in. I love you, man. Look. It's magnificent. And it'll carry us over every stone, I swear. I swear it to you. All right. We'll get Tintin. We're gonna send him back down to the plane. We'll take his extra. You see where the sun's gonna set? That way's west. And to the west are the green valleys of... We're gonna die, you know. But if we die, we're gonna die walking. Good luck.
And so we were saved. Nando and Canessa breached the Andes, and we were saved. Later, a group went back and buried the bodies. They built a rough stone altar by the grave, and over it they placed an iron cross. There's nothing more I can tell you. We were brought together by a grand experience.
Why keep going when you feel there's no hope? Why continue? Because you don't know what's just around the bend. You don't know what God can do. He's asking you to trust. Oftentimes, it's in the darkest of valleys that the enemy of our soul will come in, and he will use doubt and discouragement. Those are two of his sharpest of weapons. And he will tell you just to lay down. He'll tell you to forget about it. He'll tell you that God has forgotten, that he doesn't know, that he doesn't see, he doesn't care, that he's indifferent, that he has left you. So just take matters into your own hands one way or the other. It is in those times that we are stretched to the end of ourselves, end of our own resources, and it is in those times that we don't realize what may be hanging in the balance. And if we can risk believing that it's not what it seems like, it's not what it feels like, because everything within us will be screaming enough, will be screaming to give in. But if we just continue, if we're willing to try it one more time, we will be able to see God work. There is a figure in the Old Testament who did not realize, at least from a human perspective, that in a way, all of the plan of salvation rested upon his shoulders. Now, God doesn't need any of us. He can always work. He will always work. But from a human perspective, if you're familiar with the story of Joseph, Joseph was used to save God's people despite who they were, right? Think about his brothers. Joseph was sold into prison by his brothers, or sold into slavery, and then it went from bad to worse. He tried to make lemonade out of lemons, and then he was falsely accused and thrown in prison. I have worked in a prison where there are policies and procedures, and in a modern prison, I can assure you that what Joseph went through was horrific. But Joseph was willing to maintain. If ever there was a situation that felt hopeless, it was Joseph's situation. He got his hopes up one time, and he was able to share with two men as far as interpreting their dreams, and then he tells the one that was going to live, remember me. The degree of pathos, the degree of pain that pours out of Joseph at that moment is intense. He says, please tell Pharaoh to get me out of here. I did nothing wrong. Then it said, the man totally forgot about Joseph. And 2 years went by. From a human perspective, there was no hope. But Joseph was willing to risk believing, while he was pouring out his pain to God, that somehow God could come through. And there's a song from the animated film dealing with Joseph that speaks to that wrestling, that deep pain. And it speaks to the ultimate place that God wants us to be able to get to be able to reach, which is to understand that when I don't understand, when I don't see, when I can't see how anything good could come of this, that he still has a plan and that he knows me better than I.
I thought I did what's right. Thought I had the answers. I thought I chose the surest road, but that road brought me here. So I put up a fight and told you how to help me. Now just when I have given up, the truth is coming clear. You know better than I. You know the way. I've let go the need to know why, for you know better than I. If this has been a test, I cannot see the reason, but maybe knowing I don't know is part of getting through. I tried to do what's best, and faith has made it easy to see the best thing I can do is put my trust in you. You know better than I. You know the way. I've let go the need to know why, for you know better than I saw a cloud and thought it was the sky. I saw a bird and thought that I could follow. But it was you who taught that bird to fly. If I let you reach me, will you teach me? For you know better than I. You know the way. I've let go the need to know why. I'll take what answers you supply. For you know better than I.
It is in those times that I cannot see how anything good can come from what I have experienced. Whether somebody has betrayed me, whether there has been loss from things beyond my control, whether there is actual loss that I've experienced, the death of someone that I cared for, that I cared deeply about, that I can't see how anything good can come from this. On the one hand, Loss is not good. We were never expected to and intended to go through loss. But the real question is, does God know? Does he see? Does he hear? Does he feel? Or is he detached? He's anything but that. In Psalm 56:8, as we have mentioned many times on this program, that he captures our tears in a bottle. He understands our pain. And even if I have been part of the reason why things are different now, that even if it's self-imposed, the one thing that can help us risk believing that it is worth welcoming in a new year is that ultimately we are just fellow travelers. We're passing through. This is not our home. But we look with anticipation for someday to be reunited with those that we love and reunited with a God who gave his all to us. And that will be a place where there will be no more tears. That will finally be our home. And how fitting that Wayne Watson and Sandi Patty reunited. To sing this song, both saw the end of their marriages. So, from a rigid perspective, some would say they should never sing again. They have disqualified themselves. Sandi Patty had an affair. I'm not sure about Wayne Watson's situation, but God is the God of a second chance. So Sandi Patty and Wayne Watson, Christian artists of yesteryear, came back together to sing Another Time, Another Place.
So I get a call a long time ago, to sing a duet with one of the all-time greats. And I said I'd have to pray about it, and it was the fastest answer to prayer I ever had. Please welcome Sandi Patty.
All right, maestro, hit it.
I've always heard there is a land beyond the mortal dreams of man.
And every fear will be left behind, but it must be in another time.
There'll be an everlasting light shining the purest, holy white.
And every single tear is gonna be erased, but it must be in another place.
So I'm waiting for another time and another place where all my hopes and dreams will be captured with one look at Jesus' face. Oh, my heart's been burning, my soul keeps yearning. Sometimes I can't hardly wait for that sweet, sweet someday when I'll be swept away to another time and another place. Ooh. I've grown so tired of earthly things.
Me too.
They promise peace, but furnish pain.
All of life's sweetest joy
glories combined, oh, they'll never match those in another time.
And though I've put my trust in Christ and felt His Spirit move in my life,
I know it's truly just a taste of His glory in another place.
And so I'm waiting for another time and another place where all my hopes and dreams will be captured with one look at Jesus' face. Oh, my heart's been burning, my soul keeps yearning. Sometimes I can't hardly wait for that sweet, sweet someday when I'll be swept away to another time and another place. One look at Jesus' face. Oh, my heart's burning, my soul's yearning. Sometimes I can't hardly wait for that sweet, sweet someday, when I'll be swept away. I'll be swept away to another time and another place. Another time, another place. Oh, 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 oh.
You've been listening to Journey to Healing, sponsored by SurvivorSupport.net. We trust you've been helped by the information our host, John Uhler, has shared. To donate to this ministry, to schedule a personal consultation with John, or to arrange a professional training for your church or organization with John, simply visit our website. On behalf of Survivor Support, we look forward to hearing from you and to have you join us next time on Journey to Healing.